Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Executive Sessions. I'm your host, Clayton, and we've got a hell of a show lined up for you today. I've got two guests here, and if you've missed the first, couple of episodes, well, then shame on you and go watch those. But regardless, I've got a returning guest who I should honestly say who's my guest host at this point, which is the owner of the company, Mr. John Stewart.
Greetings, Clayton.
And to my left, we have a new guest. It's actually some family of John's. This is Sir David of the Stewart clan, and from what I've been told, he's really good at miniature golf and very good at freestyle rapping. And I guess crocheting is another big hobby of his. David, welcome to the show.
Afternoon, Clayton.
To be honest with you all, this is the first time that I've really ever spoken to David, so this is a great introduction.
Yes.
So, David, typically when we have somebody new on the show, we kick things off by taking about 5 minutes or so to kind of run through their background, their history, and I know you and John are related, so I'm kind of excited to see how this plays out. So, well, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your history.
Yeah, I won't go too far back because we might still have some legal things back when we were kids that we can't talk about. So me and John will keep it on the down there. We can't go back that far. But no, I got my start in manufacturing not long right after high school. I went into the garment industry. So I worked in the garment industry for a while and in a couple different companies. And then I progressed onto the wood flooring industry from there. And then for the wood flooring industry, I got into a tier one automotive supplier that was starting up in a place called Somerset, Kentucky.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you work at Toyota with John, or?
No, my company supplied John TMMK, or all Toyota North America parts, so stamp and welded parts. And I actually my parts didn't go directly to John's department when he was over final assembly, but later on we started making assembly parts like brake pedals and lower control arms, and those things actually end up going to John's department where they would get assembled in John's department. So I'd have to go I was the quality manager, and I'd have to go check on an issue, and I'd go by John's department, and of course he'd yell at me for sending them bad parts or something from my company, and then from there it was, but we started working together kind of indirectly on that part of it again. So, and then after that I worked there for about 10, 12 years, and then John said, hey, come out. I got these guys I want you to start working with. My background was a lot of management background, but come out and start working with these guys in consulting. And so I left the Tier 1 Automobile Supplier and started consulting for another firm that worked with another firm John was with. And from there, we just kind of grew from that. So then I started Banner about 4 years ago with my partner, David Dressman. And that's turned out to be things we've learned from the past. We called each other one day and said, hey, let's do this thing, but if we do it, let's do it how we always talked about doing it, doing it better. And so we started doing that, and this is where we are now. So 4 years later, here we are.
Well, that's awesome, man. So you guys, I guess, do have like an indirect history of working together up until this point. So
we go way back.
Oh, you guys do?
Yeah, way back. Literally as far back as you can go.
Which one of you is older?
He is, of course.
Oh,
Can't you tell?
How much older are you, David?
Just about 2 years, year and 11 months.
Year and 11 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I bet that was fun growing up, especially. It's like I bet you got a lot of what I got, which was listen to your older brother.
No, I got a lot of my brother getting mad because I beat him at basketball and he just beat me up.
No, that never happened. That never happened. What are you talking about?
We can't prove it. That's the legal thing, right?
Yeah.
You make the 3-point shot and get sucker punched in the face, as your reward.
Hey.
No blood, no foul, or blood or no foul.
Yeah.
Either one.
Ball.
Either one was good. Whatever. Yeah.
No, we have some good stories back then. We did typical brothers. We fought a lot. But it was one of those things, like all brothers, I guess, come up somewhat duke it out a little bit. But it was funny during football season. We both played football all through growing up since we was about 7, 8 years old, but we never fought during football season. I guess we took our aggression out on each other on the football field, we never got home and never had a fight. Well, plus we were too wore out at the end of the day, so we never got in fights then. But off season, it was game on. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have any fun work stories or anything that you would you kind of like mess with each other while you were on the clock or anything? Or
Like work stories?
Yeah.
No, I will give this one story on John. It was my one of my birthdays, 50th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
I was working in Georgia. We were both with another companies, and he said, I'm coming down, take you out to dinner for your birthday. It's great. One of our guys we worked with, a fellow named John Poff, was working down there with us, and I met him at a restaurant, and I noticed we were eating dinner, and we was about ready to leave for dinner, and I felt this heat behind me, all this heat. I was like, what is going on? I turned around. They had a birthday cake with 50 freaking candles on it, and it's about to set the place on fire. And they brought that thing out, and happy birthday type thing. But anyway, yeah, that was kind of funny. I was sitting there just shaking because you see 50 candles on a cake.
It's a fire hazard at that point.
Yeah, at that point, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, the permitting required was quite impressive.
Fire marshal there.
Fire marshal. We had to have fire extinguisher on hand, because lung capacity becomes an issue at his age.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, I guess those 2 years really make that big of a difference. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out. I'm really excited. We've got a great show lined up. We're gonna dive in today and kind of talk about basic training. For those of you who don't know, anybody who's got like some sort of military background knows that I'm referring to boot camp. But we're not talking about going into the service or anything specifically. More of a manufacturing boot camp. So my question is to you guys, because I'd never heard this term before. I've worked in different backgrounds, different groups, and so on and so forth, and they had different terms for processes that were similar to this, but they never actually called it a boot camp. They never did what I've learned that you all do. So explain to us what boot camps are, what the purpose is, and I've got a load more to ask you after that. So let's just start with that.
Did you just say shit?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It could be.
Yeah, that's terrible. You mean they didn't do boot camps at Channel 36 News?
No, they didn't do boot
Okay.
camps at Channel
I thought you would be down with the booty boot camps. So you'd know all about this. So no, the boot camps are a concept that we brought with us from Toyota. And so Toyota had a process that they called Jishiken, which is like rapid pace of change. And so the idea is to bring people together and focus on solving a problem. And if you bring people together and you all focus on solving a problem in a limited amount of time, you can make a lot of progress on solving the problem. And so we would do these types of activities. And as we started buying these lower middle market industrial companies, one of the things that we understood right away is that they didn't have the background and the training in lean manufacturing and some of the processes and systems that we had. So literally we'd be speaking a foreign language to them when we would talk about doing some of the things that we would want to achieve. And so we found it necessary to develop a training program so that we could train them on basics of lean manufacturing and how to implement certain concepts like standardized work and Kaizen or continuous improvement in their process. And so we developed the bootcamp methodology to incorporate the training aspect of lean manufacturing and teaching, but also the Jishiken approach about making rapid change, at the company. And so about 20% of the time spent in the classroom and about 80% of the time spent on the shop floor, actually making improvements in the processes at the companies when we're doing this training activity. And so the banner team led by David and David, or D squared or David squared or whatever you want to think about them, they facilitate the boot camp activity for us across the portfolio companies. And it's real impressive what we're able to achieve. The boot camp savings are average probably $600,000 of improvements per week of boot camp activity.
Per week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. and they're a lot of fun to participate in because we don't go in there and come up with a list of activities that the company has to execute. The whole process is the team that's there will work, if it's 3-shift operation, they'll work across all 3 shifts and very little sleep, to get everything completely implemented, train the workers, make the changes, redesign the processes, and leave as little as possible work that remains to be completed once the boot camp is finished. So everything should be as complete when we finish the boot camps. And so we've done these, trained literally thousands of people across all of the companies and it's actually a real rewarding experience to see how the employees respond to people taking the time to train them and improve their skill level and help them to improve their processes, because ultimately they're the one that are carrying the burden for like inefficient processes every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that too, you've got the actual wear and tear on them as well, doing the same repetitive motion and breaking down their body. And it's just a quality improvement on all fronts, it seems like. Well, so that kind of explains why people should care. Whenever you come in and you like Banner, for example, like you come in and you say, okay, well, we're going to pull these various companies in. We're going to say, we're doing a boot camp this week. We want you there. Do you guys ever get any sort of pushback on that? Like, well, I'm too busy. I can't.
I don't get any pushback from anybody.
Okay.
I'm usually the person that they call when they get pushback, but I usually don't get any pushback.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, no, we get some hesitations, especially companies that are, I would say, have a lot of strong, long-time legacy people there. They're like anybody, we're set in our ways. A lot of us are, and so a lot of times they're not as open sometimes to that stuff. But once you get in there and you show them the data, show them what they're doing, and also get their input. That's the big key part. We just don't go in there and tell them this is what you're doing wrong or whatever. We show them this is not what you're doing wrong. There's just a better way of doing it.
Right.
And if we can show them that new way or that better way of doing it, then they're, okay, I didn't realize that. I've been doing this for 20 years this way, right?
Right.
Now you want me to go left instead of right. So it's hard for them to do that, like anybody it would be. But you get their input also. What's some of the problems you have in your process? What do you see? What do you deal with every day? When they get their feedback, you get their feedback and their input, they're more apt to decide, hey, this maybe I can finally get some of these things been aggravating me for 20 years. I can get fixed. Right. And so now that it's just not my idea or the group's idea, it's their idea also, right? So now they're more buying into the concept. And that's how you really got to get their involvement to do that. Because, I've had people yell and scream and not want to do it, and that's okay. That's all right. But I always go back to those people. When I go back and audit the projects afterwards, I'll go back to the ones that complain the most, when changing their process or changing their area. Because I always ask them, do you want me to change it back? And not one of them has ever said yes.
Well, that's a pretty good track record then.
Yeah. So, you can ask them, how's it going? They'll still say, I'll give you that OA. Yeah. But you ask them if you want to change it back, they never want to go back to the way it was. I'll just leave it like it is. Right. So, obviously, it's better for them. Right.
So, on that note, you're pulling in all these different teams because it's not just one company, right?
It's people from across the portfolio. It's all different companies.
So what criteria do you pull? Like, how do you say, okay, like we'll just use Banner as an example. If you say Banner needs to be involved in a boot camp, they have a main focus that I think we should really focus on and try to help them improve.
You're talking about our company Banner, not the consulting company Banner.
Right.
So thanks for not confusing everybody by picking one of our companies, the only one that had the exact name of the consulting company that we're talking about. That would be better.
Okay, I'll go with Race Winning. Okay, so you say Race Winning's got this this process.
And is it only me, or is his Harry Potter glasses really bothering everybody else? Because I'm really having trouble focusing right now. I just want to Harry Potter,
He's a wizard, Harry.
Get out from underneath the cupboard.
If you want, I can let you wear them the whole time.
I love that.
Yeah,
this will be
that's
great.
even
Hey,
better.
let's do this.
Yeah.
There we go. How do we like that, everybody? Yeah. Hey, thumbs up.
And when we're editing,
and here's the funny thing: they're clear. They're clear glasses.
It's my favorite color.
There's no prescription in these. What in the hell are you doing?
Light. They're blue light.
Blue light. Yeah, because it's the blue light in here is so terrible.
It'll
okay, now this is better.
Is this better?
Now I can't remember the
question. It was just
question
an excuse to look into my eyes.
Did you ask something? Or are we just going to do this all day? Because this is wonderful. Am I going to tell stories about you on the yacht in Monaco?
I hope so.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful.
Stay tuned for the after hours executive sessions.
Yeah, so we were in Monaco and we were we went to Cannes and we took a helicopter and to go back and forth. And evidently, if you've never ridden on a helicopter, the natural thing that everyone does is go, get in the chopper!
It's true.
from Predator. And so he did it so much that everybody there was too young to understand the Predator reference. So we had to watch Predator with everybody on the yacht so that they could get the reference. And then they were totally underwhelmed by the reference once it actually played out. So
they were like, oh, now I get it. It's like, yeah, you get it. It's very good. Yeah.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And so back to the question.
Okay, yeah. So how do you prioritize different portfolio companies that say, yes, this race-winning brands, for example, needs to go to a boot camp? Do they volunteer? Are you looking at numbers? How do you?
Yeah. So what I like to see happen is like to see it start at the senior part of the organization first. I like to see like the most senior operations person go to boot camp, because if you start at the senior level, then the senior people then know what to expect when the junior people go through the boot camp. But then some of the senior people, they're like, I'm a vice president of manufacturing. I don't need to go to training, but they're the number one person that needs to go to training. And not because they may not be knowledgeable, but to set an example for their people to say that this is important. This isn't just an activity that MiddleGround's trying to do at the portfolio and bring people, it's a value-added exercise, because, when they go to boot camp, when they finish, they have to go back and finish a homework assignment. They have to do something at their plant that they're in, and they have to use the tools that they learned, and then they have to, put it into action. Otherwise, what's the point of doing the training? If you train people and they don't put it in action, there's no benefit to that. And so I like to see it start at the top and then work its way down. I've seen in the past some companies that they train everybody throughout the organization, and then they're actually training the hourly workers on the shop floor. And then I've seen other places that head of operations just like refuses to go. I've seen companies where the CEO gets involved and goes, and we don't mandate for them to participate and how they participate. They need to have participants, but you can tell a lot about leaders in their willingness to set the example for their people by participating in some of these trainings.
So have you ever been able to use the boot camp, for example, to identify a problem with leadership at the top and say, oh, okay, now this guy or gal or whatever, you say, oh, they are not supporting, they're not being a team player, they're giving me 1,000 reasons why they are too good to do this. I think we need to axe them and find somebody else or pull in new talent.
Well, for legal reasons, we would never use that as a reason to axe them.
Right.
But no, we would use some like other
additional
issues.
training.
Okay. But no, it had to be a cumulative factor. Like in those cases, we'll have discussions with them, and if they're still resistant, at the end of the day, we own the company. So like if you work at one of our companies and you're resisting us, probably not a good idea. Just like it's not a good idea if you work for any other company and you resist like whatever your boss asked you to do. Like it's kind of futile.
Right.
So you're going to do it. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it with a smile on your face, or are you going to, do it on your way out the door?
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so the processes that go into building a boot camp, David, specifically, you mentioned to me you've worked for various companies. You were talking to David about starting there, right? And you were through and saying, let's do it, right? Tell me about your experiences of what you've seen over the years and what you've been able to say, okay, this is a problem. I need to make sure that we don't do this. Like, how has your past kind of helped shape these boot camps?
Yeah, so I was part of the early on boot camps years and years ago when we started them, and they were those boot camps were very, very complex. I mean, I remember boot camps where I didn't go back to the hotel for 2 days, because we just had such huge projects back then. And we were sleeping at the factory sometimes just to get the projects done in a week. You got really 4.5 days to get it done. So, which is much different than a lot of things. But again, the satisfaction, as John talked about at the end, is really good. But going forward, we also learned what's the benefit of these, boot camps? What are we trying to get out of these boot camps, right? Number one, we're trying to get training out of the boot camps. We're also wanting to get results out of the boot camp too, not just training. So it's not just sitting in a classroom, like John said, about 20% of the time we're in the classroom, but really we take that, it's a crawl, walk, run type approach, right? We learn, let's get the basics down and get them out there, start using them immediately through observation and learning how to collect data, and then start implementing as fast as we can so we can get those results by, really truthfully, Friday morning. We've got to be reporting out to the MiddleGround and the company's management team by Friday morning. So we're constantly always improving the boot camp, right? What we've learned over the years, okay, that doesn't work well, let's do this. This hasn't worked well, let's do that. So we're constantly trying to always improve the boot camp, just like we're trying to improve the projects, right? If you looked at boot camp now than what it was, 10, 12 years ago, it's completely different, compared to what, just, it's not that we didn't think it was good back then, it's just like a process. We want to continuously improve the boot camp to get the maximum benefit for the company and for the people in the training class in that short period of time that we have them for 5 days, right? So you're trying to maximize that time, just like we're trying to maximize the processes in each one of these companies. The boot camp's a process, and so we're constantly Kaizen that process all the time, just like the processes in your company.
So, okay, on that note specifically, walk us through a boot camp, like the process, because you've got 5 days, so your everybody's time is very valuable. This is costing time, this is costing money, there's a lot of resources that's going through this. So, walk us through exactly what it is that you do. Like, what's day one focus on, day two, so on.
Yeah, if you really think about a boot camp, to do a boot camp like we do boot camps, the logistical part probably starts 4 or 5 months back. The like I said, the logistics starts about 4 or 5 months back. So you have to start planning hotel rooms, food, what projects are we going to do, what location are we going to do. Like I said, hotel rooms, everything have to come into play. We're having meetings with all the participants, getting the participant list, because you have between I'd say 18 and 25 people in a boot camp, right, from all these different portfolio companies. So you're trying to get all these people together. So that's the first part of it, just getting the logistics part of it. People don't realize that's a big thing. You're planning a big, huge party,
right?
An event, and you have to but you're taking care of everything, right? And then the other part of that is getting inside the company and doing a lot of homework ahead of time. So prepping the projects prior to the boot campers getting there. We kind of understand, we kind of know what we want to see, or the direction, the result. We kind of want to know that, or we kind of know that ahead of time. But but we still have to do a lot of prep work to get to there. So we might need some things built ahead of time. We might need some other things done prior to the participants getting there. So the boot camp process is really long. Then once the boot camp starts, people arrive on a Sunday night, and check in. And then Monday morning, 7 a.m. usually, we're in the facility and we're training in the classroom day one. It's introductions, quick plant tour, and then we're in training class for probably till after lunchtime on that day.
Okay.
Then after that, they go straight into out on the floor to their processes or their projects, and they're starting to observe to get the current situation. What's the current state? Using the basic tools we just went over in the classroom, they're out there trying to get that and getting that taken care of. And then by Tuesday, they're already developing some ideas of how they want to make it better, right? How they want to change the process. And that's a really interesting day, because they're confirming their data and they're scratching their heads and they're trying to figure it out. Everybody starts the first day, kind of happy. They're at a training class, everything. By Wednesday, they're really getting into getting on the floor, doing more trials, figuring out their first ideas are not working, and now they have to come up with another set of ideas, right? And we can't get to that goal this way, so we need to go this way, right? So they're having to redo everything again, right?
Right.
And then Thursday comes along, and you got to be running trials, full-blown current future state trials by Thursday, all day, to collect good data to show this is what it was when we got here, this is what it was when we finished our project, right? And then you start putting your projects together the night before, Thursday night, and then Friday morning, usually 8 a.m., we're presenting out to the management team our results for that day. And it's got to be running. New standardized work's got to be done. The new setup's got to be done. Everything's got to be running like it's going to be run in the future state. It has to be
and
operational.
If there's multi-shifts, all shifts, the operators have to be trained.
Yeah.
So the team's like breaking up, and they're working on first shift, second shift, third shift.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Training everybody. Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything's got to be, it's got to be 90% done with very little things left over. We just couldn't get done that week for them to, only homework we really leave the company to finish up on, but we bring people in the following week, and we just help them sustain what they learned the first week and make sure because there's going to be problems come up. We know we can't get it all done in that week, so there's going to be little problems come up. We just tackle the problems. We don't ever go back. we just keep pushing forward. It's just another problem. We just solve it and keep going forward with them and showing them, don't stop just because it's a little problem. Keep moving, just fix the problem and keep moving forward.
And there's lessons that they're learning along the way. So the organization is learning a lesson because, usually the plant that we've done this type of activity, it's usually the first time they've done any type of like this activity before. So they've got to prepare the workforce that these people are going to be in. As a part of the preparation, David and his team are out there talking to the employees on the shop floor. They're talking to the plant manager and the management team to understand where they're having problems, because we want to try to solve problems.
Yeah.
We're not trying to create problems. So we'll find out, like, maybe there's a new product line that they just introduced and they're trying to ramp up production, but they're having issues in the production line. And so that might be a focus of one of the areas. And then you're solving a problem, because otherwise the plant management has to fix that problem.
Right.
So you're bringing these people into their facility and you're trying to solve their problems. And, so as you're going through that process, you're trying to like teach people like different things. And one of those things is that the people are broken up into small teams, 3 to 5 people. And then they'll work together on the problem. So it's not like individual people. There's not like 28 problems everybody's working on. There's, 3 or 4 problems, and then they're broken up into teams, and those teams will go work on those problems and those processes, and they'll have to divide the work up and do different things.
Okay.
And what we're trying to teach people as a part of that is, like, sometimes you feel like, especially manufacturing, because when you're, like when you're working on the production line and there's another car coming down, so you finish this car and then 55 seconds later is another car. And you got to do the same thing over on the next car. And then 55 seconds later is another car. And then 55 seconds later there's another car. And so when you're in that kind of mindset, in that production mindset, your time's accounted for. There's allotted for, if you're working in an office environment, if you're, 5 minutes late for a call, like you just get on the call and say, I'm sorry, I'm 5 minutes late. If you're 5 minutes late to the production line, like there was like 5 products and that didn't get produced. Like it's you're like missed.
Oh yeah.
And so your time's really accounted for. And so one of the things that we're trying to teach people is that even though when you have limited time and you have limited resources, if you can take a small team of people and focus them on a problem, they can fix it. You have to, in a short period of time, like who doesn't have the time to take 3 or 4 people and focus on one of their problems for a week? And you're going to solve a problem that you're never going to have to talk about again, right?
Right.
So, that's one of the concepts that we're trying to teach them. The other concept that I think is the most important concept of, manufacturing is that the people that are closest to the final product are the most important people in the company, right? So that's not the CEO, right? So,
right.
We pay the CEO all the money, right? But he's not the most important person, because like if the CEO's gone, which they make a lot of money because they don't stay very long in one place. Right. But if he's gone, like the final product to the customer in manufacturing doesn't change.
Right.
Right. Because there's a standard process that goes through. He's not ordering the material. He's not creating the standardized work. He's not training the new employees. He's not doing any of that. And there's a job for the CEO, right, is to be a leader in the organization. But
sure.
The person making the products is the most important person in the company, right? Because they're the last person to touch it before the customer touches it.
Right.
Right. So, if you're making, thousands of items, you don't have quality, checking every item, making sure everything's perfect. When every car is manufactured, everything on the car is not checked. Like there's sometimes that like a worker will do something and then he'll put a part on and cover up what he just did. There's no one that can see whether he did the first step or not, and so if they don't do that, and if you've ever been driving in your car and all of a sudden you hear something like rattling underneath your instrument panel and you're like, why does it make that noise every time I turn the air conditioner? Probably because someone didn't do something they were supposed to do. So, the reliance on that final person in the process to make sure that the customer has a good experience is like the most important part of the process. Everybody else their job is to support that person. And so in most companies, like everybody looks down on the hourly employees, right? Because they're the lowest paid people.
Right.
And that's where people like start their job. Right. And so people look down on them, but actually it's the opposite. Those are the people that are the most important people. And like the supervisors, the managers, the people in parts ordering, the people in human resources, none of those people have a job unless that person's doing their job, because the only thing that generates revenue for the company is that person doing their job day in and day out. Everything else it's not value added. The only value added is that person that's actually creating that product. In most companies, that person's not valued. And so one of the things we're trying to teach is that person is the most important person in the process. So as a part of the training, like one of the first things you do is you go to the process and you try to observe what the person's doing. And then if you see them doing something, you want to ask them, why are you doing that? Or maybe they're doing it and maybe the person that was on the job right before them isn't doing that same thing. And then like, why are you doing this way and this person's doing it that way? And you start to understand, you start to, get, their thoughts on it. Maybe it's because this person's really short and they've got to do it this way because the process isn't set up ergonomically so that they can do it the same as the person that's 6 foot tall, in that process. So you got to understand, or maybe they're not as strong as the other person and, the tool that they're using is inadequate. And so as you start talking to them, you can like start to understand like what is actually causing the problem and start solving the problem for them. And trying to make their job easier. That should be the goal of everybody in the organization, is to make those people on the front lines job easy. And that's what a lot of people just don't think about, is that the job of management is to make the jobs easier for the people that are actually adding value. And the CEO doesn't add value. The CFO doesn't add value. The head of sales doesn't add value. The salespeople don't add value. I mean, sure, you got to sell stuff. That's important. But the only person, like when in the supply chain, that actually adds value is the person that actually is producing the part.
So, well, honestly, this was a question that I had for you later, but you really kind of touch on a good point. Talking about boot camps when leaning into lean manufacturing and Kaizen and, really all of these various concepts, do you think that ESG kind of ties in with lean manufacturing?
I think ESG, lean manufacturing, I don't know, but it definitely ties into the philosophy of like continual improvement, right? And how you treat people, recognizing, the value that people have and making sure that they don't work in, substandard working conditions is I think is a part of that same strategy and philosophy. Those same people that, the head of operations who never goes to the shop floor to see the problem himself,
right?
Who never goes out and talks to the people on the floor and understands what their problems are. We see that. We go to buy a company, and like if I'm walking around with the plant manager and I'm like, how many people work here? I don't know. I'll have to check with somebody. Like you're the plant manager and you don't know how many people work here, or you're walking down the production line and you see machines not operating and you're like, well, what's going on with those machines? I don't know. Like, it doesn't happen in a properly run manufacturing. But then, for every one of those, there's 3 or 4 guys that will walk through and you ask them, they know the answer to the question down to the person. They're walking around, they're saying, hey, Bob, hi, Ted, hi, Susie, and they're talking to people as they go. And that those people are familiar to the people on the floor, that they're, know that those people are, the most important part of the process and, are kind of driving that in. And so when you think about ESG, it's the same thing. I go into some of these companies and, look at some of their operations, and I like to go in the factory and I like to look at the restrooms, and I like to see the restrooms that the workers have to use. And a lot of times, because like I'm a visitor and they know I'm a prospective person to buy the company and I'm the head of this firm, they're like, oh, you don't want to go to that bathroom. You want to go to this bathroom. No, I want to go to this one. And I'll go in there and, it's like deplorable conditions. And that means that they don't respect their workers. Like, they don't want to use the bathroom in a bathroom like that, but they're willing to let their people use in a bathroom like that, or their break areas, are not air conditioned and they, are working in 100-degree heat, and things like that. And so that all gets around kind of the whole social issue of, like it's 2023. It's time for people to wake up. Like there's no excuse to like manufacture a product in the world today with all the technology we have and damage the environment. There's literally none. Like I challenge somebody out there to tell me a process that the only way we can manufacture that product is to damage the environment. It's not true. Like it's probably some cost prohibitive item that someone doesn't want to spend the money to do what needs to be done, but there's no way we need to be damaging the planet. There's no reason in 2023 that somebody should be working in a operation that's dangerous, like that's physically dangerous for them. They have this television show, Most Dangerous jobs or whatever,
Yeah,
or, whatever those situations are, all of those things can be fixed with, capital investments and technology, all of those items. There's no, it doesn't inherently have to be that way. It's, so, and then, and that goes to like worker pay. Like who actually wants to consume a product knowing that somebody didn't get paid a fair wage for manufacturing the product? Nobody wants to do that. I think we just saw that tested in fast food when a lot of the fast food workers took a stand against the fast food companies, over like minimum wage. And, the companies were like, oh, we reject minimum wage. McDonald's CEO, I don't want $15 an hour minimum wage. You know what? Last time I checked, people weren't like throwing up a big fit over how much a Big Mac cost, right? Like if you're going to eat that garbage anyway, like you probably don't care if you're paying $5 for it or if you're paying $5.25 for it. So like, it's a fallacy to believe that like you have to pay people a substandard wage in order to make a profit, and we've shown that in our portfolio. We actually increase wages and the companies get more profitable. It goes exactly the opposite of what people think. And, it's just a sad state of affairs that in 2023, you're still fighting those battles. You're still like, you have to, like, people that are different from a gender or from a race have to worry about being paid differently. That's like ridiculous. Like today, like, it's just ridiculous that it's 2023 and we're still dealing with some of these issues because, there's people out there that just, don't care.
And even touching on that, David, tying back into something that you said earlier, the whole concept of people giving you grief about wanting to do these or not wanting to do these, and then you just have to make them a believer. You have to take them in. You have to say, no, just trust me. If you give me a week, I just let me show you. You mentioned $600,000.
About $600,000 of improvements per week.
We've seen
Millions
is before in a week, but I'd say definitely it's about the X bars. The 600,000 is probably right around the average. Yeah.
I was going to say I talked to Jason Jacobs for a bit, and he was telling me that they ran a boot camp. I think
is it Jason Jacobs or Jason Jacob?
Jason, you'll have to tell us.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Indeed, your fans want to know, Jason. But he was telling me that last year that they had made improvements in Europe, and in like a week they had saved like 1.1 billion.
Yeah,
we just had another one just finished up there not too long ago, and then the one in a race winning brands facility we just did. I think it was 700, around 700, 600, 700.
Oh my gosh,
I think so. I think it's what
in a week.
Yeah, and so but those are dollars that the company has been wasting,
right?
Because they're not utilizing their people effectively, right?
Right.
And so, that's profit dollars that they could have realized, right? That's also increased wages, that's better benefits,
reinvest in your company.
It's all our better capital equipment,
right?
For the operations, because people are just walking past the problems day in and day out, and there are solutions for the problems, but they just get used to them, and that happens all the time. So that's one of the other concepts of boot camp is to get people outside their element.
Right.
Because we'll have people like, for example, we'll own like a distribution business like HLC that distributes bicycle parts. Not that they say this, but I'm just saying as an example. In the past, we've had people say this, and they're like, well, I work at a distribution company. Why should I have to go to this manufacturing company and go do a boot camp? Their process is completely different. Well, you know what? At every manufacturing location, there are logistics operations and everything. You got to receive all the parts. You got to get the parts in. You got to put the parts in some storage location. You got to put them out to the production line. You got to, and then sometimes you're making parts or components and you're assembling things together. And then those have to be packaged and assembled, and they have to go to somebody. They have to get loaded on a truck or a train or something, and they have to get sent somewhere. So like there are logistics operations in that, and vice versa. There's manufacturing operations that go inside of a distribution facility. So having people from different companies, that's where at Toyota, everybody works for Toyota when we're doing these activities. So everybody's trained in the same stuff. Everybody has the same training, the same background, and they all know how to produce cars.
Right.
And that's what I think is really fascinating about our boot camps, which I think is I think people from Toyota that are very purists in the implementation of what they call the Toyota production system, which a lot of people have converted into their thoughts on lean manufacturing. I think the real Toyota people would think it's a really great thing, because you have people in our portfolio, you have people that are doing all kinds of different things. We have people that make precast concrete products, and people that make U.S. post office mailboxes, and people that distribute bicycle parts, and people that do all these different things coming into a plant where we make aftermarket automotive components, and are learning how to apply these like different techniques. And when you go into an operation, when you're a manufacturing person, anytime you go into like an operation, you see things, and you see like opportunities, you see improvement opportunities. And a lot of times when you're in your facility day after day after day, you get used to things and you walk past the problems that you see every day. You learn to just adapt to those problems, and you just, it just becomes a part of doing your business. Whereas somebody else walks in that's not used to seeing your process, and it stands out like that, and then they can point it out and ask a question, and then you're scratching your head like, why didn't I see that? And that happens to all of us. So it's really good to have that approach where people are coming from the outside with different backgrounds and coming together to solve a problem in one of the locations. And sometimes they make a lot of friends, across, the portfolio companies. And some, we've seen it unsolicited sometimes, that the companies will start talking with each other and say, hey, well, if you send me a couple people over this month to work on my problem, I'll send you a couple people over next month to work on your problem.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they have plants that are close to each other in Ohio or Indiana or wherever, and they're not even the same company, and they'll start doing those activities together and supporting one another. And so it's a really fun, environment to, for those that embrace it. And that's where we tend to see the more success, is where the management teams embrace the boot camps coming in, and actually really give them problems, like real problems that they need to solve, and accepting the help. That's a hard thing for people to do, is accept help. If you're the plant manager of a plant, and the boot camp team comes in and they find $1 million worth of savings, a lot of people are worried they're going to get in trouble. Right? I'm going to look like an idiot because I didn't do this. Yeah. Okay. Well, some people might think that, but we never go back and are like, can you believe how bad that plant was run? They could have saved, $1 million.
Yeah.
If the plant manager is supporting the activity, if he's like engaged in the process, if he's sharing information, if he's doing all of his, everything that he can do, he can't help it that he maybe wasn't trained in some of these concepts and he didn't recognize these things. Maybe he got promoted through his career in that facility and he walked by those things, and that was just normal business practice, and no one ever even questioned it before why you did that, and it took someone from the outside coming in and questioning it. So, we have tons of improvements we need to make at MiddleGround, and, we try all the time to not focus on blaming people because something's not done a certain way, but just focusing on making improvement. And that's what the real focus is here. Like I've never seen like a plant manager that gets in trouble, because we see a lot of opportunity in his plant. He may get in trouble because he resists and like fights us, but like he never gets in trouble because there's actual problems. Every plant has problems. We can walk to Toyota's facility in Georgetown up here, and there's problems on their production line that we could walk in there and solve, and so, and vice versa, so it's something that people need to embrace, that the continuous improvement process.
Embracing change instead of being afraid of it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I know with Toyota, you all have talked about Kaizen, you've talked about lean manufacturing, you've talked about the 3 M's. When you run boot camps, how often are people just kind of like, what are those? Like, I've never heard of that.
It's part of what the training is some of those basic concepts. The training, we try to train them on those different concepts.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's a little deer in the headlights, you know, the first couple hours.
Yeah.
And then, but we take them, as we do a section of the training, then we take them outside and let them apply it real quick. So what they just learned, go out on the floor and let's apply that, like the 7 waste, for example. Go out there and we have a sheet. They take it out there, go out there into that process and find 7 waste that we just talked about, right? And it just gets them already thinking like that. And so we try to apply those things as much as possible, as fast as we can. So it's embedded really quick, really fast, and they can start doing these changes. And like John said, the diversity is what's good too. Is we have, like I said, all types of manufacturing or distribution or whatever the processes our companies are. But the other side of that is also the diversity of the type of people we get. So HR people come to boot camps, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we get all kinds, and some of those people are really good because what's really good about engineering or HR, they're not on the floor a lot, on the production floor a lot. Those type of people aren't sales. We even had sales and marketing guys come. But what happens is they actually see the abnormal that John was talking about. Abnormal becomes the normal because we walk by it every day. But those people spot it immediately. Why is that like that? Why is it like that? Why are they doing that, right? Because they're not used to walking by it every day. They're in their office or wherever handling their job. They never see that on the floor. So sometimes those people are some of our best boot campers because they really come up with they have a lot of ideas that manufacturing people just don't recognize sometimes because we're just so used to being in manufacturing and that's just kind of the normal, right? But really it's not normal, it's abnormal. So those people are really good in boot camp. So having that diverse, not just different people, but different people within the structure of the company too. Because I've had people go back and take those same principles and apply them to the HR department or apply them to the marketing department. We do activities at Banner all the time. People from the boot camp, I can't tell how many times, would you come and do a value stream on our sales from the customer, the sales to get to the production floor? We need to map that out. We have problems. We can't get it there. We can't get it to the production floor fast enough, which means we can't do the production, which means that's lost revenue, right? Or revenue that's delayed anyway. So how can we get it to the floor faster? So we're not messing with any machines or anything. It's all just the information flow. And so you can Kaizen the information flow, right? But we've had from boot camps, that's what comes back to us. Hey, we have a big problem just trying to get the orders to the floor. How do we do that? So, scheduling is always a big issue. One of the biggest issues we get into a lot of times is people, a lot of problems on production floors. It comes back to we end up backtracking. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? Ends up being a scheduling issue or logistical issue, right? So now we get that department involved, even though they weren't initially involved in the boot camp. So we start getting all these other affiliated things that, like John said, that support the production floor. They're like, yeah, I can make that faster if you get me the parts on time, or if you get me this on time, or whatever. I need this. Just simple things like a box to put them in. I got to wait for a box. I can't ship it until I get a box, right? Why can't we get boxes, right? And you start back. But all those things start coming into play in boot camps. So now you start seeing, it was this little project. By the time boot camp's over and the end of the week, this little project starts encompassing more of the company. So now we try to average 3 to 4 projects per boot camp, plus 1 ESG project we started, and per boot camp. And now, but those start encompassing everything. Now instead of this little section we were working on, now it's grown, and now what you'll start seeing, it's kind of like a steroid shot to the company. We call it.
Okay.
It's the effect, right?
Gotcha.
It's speed and effect, right? So, and the speed and results, maybe that's what it is. Is we're just showing people, if you take a group of people, dedicate them for a week, don't let them. They don't have to do their other job for a week. What can be accomplished in a week? Honestly, if you take in most companies, say do these 4 projects on any normal company, it'll probably take them a year to get those projects done. And we do it in 4 days, basically 4 days, and have it 90% complete in 4 days, right? With some follow-up. But that's what we're trying to teach them to do. Just dedicate some people to these problems and use these simple techniques.
And listen to the people on the shop floor.
And listen to the people on the shop floor and actually just do it. Most of the time in boot camps, it's not like we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix something.
Right.
Most boot camps, we'll spend probably less than $1,000 to fix things a lot of times in the total boot camp. And that's just mainly for supplies for the boot camp, right? So, but we that's the other benefit. Everybody wants the $1 million solution, the new shiny machine, but really and truthfully, that's not what we look at. We look at the methodology on how we make that part or how we do that process, right? And that's really where we look at. We look at taking steps. Lean is really just taking the wasted steps that do nothing to add value to the final product, right? So anything that doesn't add value to the final, what I'm selling to the customer, what they require, I need to take those out as much as possible and eliminate those as much as possible.
And then, part of the training on, understanding the different types of waste that, that are in a process is because when you understand the types of waste through the training, you learn that there is actually a way to countermeasure each type of waste. So like, as you're going through it, it's not just waste, like, oh, that's waste, we need to fix that. Of course, everybody, if they recognize waste, they would say we need to fix it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's recognizing the waste, classifying the waste, understanding like what type of waste it is, and then based on the different types of waste, understanding like what are the countermeasure methods for improving that part of the operation. And so you have to understand those concepts, and it's a process that you go through in order to be able to do it and to be able to execute it and to be able to teach others the same concepts.
Right.
And so like when we buy these companies, some of the companies that we buy, they've done some type of training. They have some kind of lean manufacturing background, depending on, and it doesn't matter if it's a big company or small company, it just depends on who the leaders were in the past. And so they'll have some level. We're not trying to make a cookie cutter approach and try to get everybody to be like Toyota, right? Like,
right.
That's not even in the realm of possibility in our ownership horizon. Mm-hmm. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach the people in the company how to recognize opportunity, waste in their processes, and with these different concepts, how to implement standardized work, the importance of talking to people, the importance of dedicating resources to the strategy, these different concepts that helps them advance wherever they are, whether they have no previous knowledge or whether they've been doing it for 30 years. Everybody can learn, right? And so some people, they're learning how to advance their current learning, and some people are in their infancy and they're just learning. But our goal is just to help advance them. And so under our ownership, that we're just helping to encourage them, on how to go down this path, because at the core in manufacturing, especially in North America and in Europe, where we've had established manufacturing for years, we need to see improvement in these operations so that we can get more competitive, okay? And so that we can also meet the demand that's there today. Post-COVID, we're seeing a lot of reshoring of production, which is creating a lot more volume. We're also seeing a lot fewer young people that want to go into doing manufacturing jobs because wages are low and, working conditions aren't great. Would you rather work at a Taco Bell that's air conditioned, working the hours that you want, or would you rather work on third shift in a stamping press that if you don't do something right, you could lose your hand, and the people, it's a pretty no-brainer for people to decide that. So we can't continue to operate those facilities the way we have. We have to improve those facilities. Got to improve the operations. We got to improve the work locations for them, and that's where it gets kind of into the ESG aspect, is being able to make those changes. And the whole key to making all those changes is teaching people these concepts so that they can make that continuous improvement and recognize these things inside their facilities.
It's just extraordinary. The more that we talk about it, the more I try to research up to a certain point, but I also just like sitting and just talking, just because it is to sit down with two professionals who know so much about this, who have literally spent their lives doing it. You get a lot more from that than you do just reading an article online. So I do have to know, we're almost out of time, but I have to know one thing. We've mentioned Kaizen, which kind of focuses on continuous improvement. We've mentioned Lean, which focuses more on minimizing waste while maximizing production. Six Sigma kind of delves into achieving a level of quality that's nearly perfect. Do you think that any of these is more important than the other? Or do you think that they're literally they all just kind of flow into each other?
Yeah, I think they all kind of work and flow into each other. But I would think, the one of the fundamental things of the understanding of the Toyota production system or lean manufacturing is standardized work. So if you're in a manufacturing environment where you're producing the same product, but every individual operator has a different way of making that same product, you're going to introduce variability in the product itself. Like you have to, right? If you don't follow the same sequence on that, like how you tighten. So like, for example, you go into a Toyota facility and the person that's putting the headlight on the car, right? There's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 fasteners, that are tightening the headlamp, and they're designed to be tightened in a certain order, right?
Okay.
So like there's one that is designed to be tightened first because it probably provides the right alignment in the horizontal direction of the light. Gotcha. There's another one, the next one is going to provide the vertical alignment, right? And then the others are going to fasten it, like, and secure it. And so, as when you go to the operation, if the person's not tightened, if they're not tightened the correct one first, then the horizontal alignment won't be right. And so, like, then when you are, using your lights on down the road, they're not going to be at the right level, right? It's going to cause some kind of problem, in the vehicle. Absolutely. And so everything's designed to be done a certain way. And so making sure that there's a standard process that people are following so that you can have repeatable results. And so the only way to do that is to do the process over and over and over again, because human element is important because there's a lot of things humans can do that machines can't. We can make judgment calls, and we can, and we can have more dexterity, and, there's all these different things that it's important to have the human element in the manufacturing process. But making sure that we are following the same process over and over again, because that's something that we don't like to do as humans. Like, it's not, you get bored.
Yeah. Nobody likes monotony.
With it can be monotonous, but it's very important to have that standardized work, because without standardized work, none of the tools that you mentioned, you can't do anything without standardized work in place. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to establish, like, what the standardized work methodology is, and before you can do any of the other, activities.
Yeah, about 90% of all the companies we go into, I would say, do not follow standardized work. They'll have a work instruction, what they call step, what they do, but you can, like I think we talked about earlier, you can go from shift to shift, and every one of them's doing it different. It's because so-and-so trained this person, so-and-so trained this person, and they knew, this guy trained them, and this different person trained the other person. They trained the way they did it, and so then you see all this variability. And first thing we have to do in boot camps is notice that immediately, and then we have to decide what's the best standard work, right? Now, we're not saying all of them's wrong. We might take the best of what all 3 of them do, for example, and make the standardized work, and then get their buy-in on it. And the best thing is even get them to help develop it, right? Get the team members to help develop it. Right. And then from there, you got your standardized work. Then you retrain everybody, and then now you have a document you can audit too. And then you have a document you can train the new people in, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's learning it the same way. So it doesn't matter if you pull one of the persons out, the next person in, you train them the exact same document, the exact same way, and now everybody's doing it the same way. So the variability, when you get into Six Sigma, which you're looking for variability, that starts shrinking, right? Now I got something I can really measure. Because if you measured it before, it's all over the board, right? So there's no, how do I plan for that, right? So there's no planning. The planning, scheduling, production volumes all are decided on based on how the standard out of work is followed. Because why does one shift get more than the other shift? Why does this shift get more than that shift, right? It comes down to how's the standardized work being followed first. Well, most time there's not one, or they are not following it.
Oh no, I've seen it numerous times. Like, we'll go in and there'll be one of the shifts. Usually it's the first shift, because it's honestly, the more people, all of the salaried people are on first shift. And what they do is they call it more disruption on the floor for all the people. The most efficient shifts are statistically second and third shift, because there's nobody there to distract them. So like someone, has a question, they go out and they start asking questions, or an engineer goes out and starts messing with a machine, and then like changes one of the parameters, and now it's like not producing something, and it causes like a problem. Well, there's no engineers on second or third shift, and so there's no one messing with the machine. So like when you work on second or third shift, your mindset is just production. We're just getting everything done.
Right.
And so it's very common that we'll go in and you'll have a problem on first shift, and we'll look at the problem and look at what's actually like happening. And maybe they're making 300 parts, a day. And then we go to second shift and they're making 600 parts a day with the exact same equipment, with the exact same raw materials, with the exact same everything. And on day shift, they're like telling you they have all these problems, there's all these issues, and the guy on night shift is like adapting to all of the problems, and he's producing twice as much, products. And so, you have to spend time going and understanding like all three shifts and like what's actually going on. And then what you find out in those situations when that happens is like, okay, well then the person on first shift, he's griping about the quality of his parts coming in, and maybe there is like a problem with his parts, but he's griping because there's a quality person there to gripe to. On night shift, there is no quality person to gripe to, so they just got to deal with it.
Yeah,
and they had to make do. And so, there's legitimate issues, and then there's issues that people just make. And then, as David mentioned, standardized work. The hardest thing is when you get like the first, second, third shift, and they're all doing their own thing, and then you got to get all three of them to follow one method. Well, they don't want to do it because then they're going to admit the other guy was doing it better than they were, and so like it, again, it's challenging, but it's all part of the process, and again, we find it fun, to do these things, and it's always good to see people when the light bulb goes off and they get it, and then when you see those people, we have a person at Alco, and she started as she was in quality. She went through the boot camps. Now she's a plant manager at one of the facilities, and just really embraced everything we did. And she manages the facility like she was trained at Toyota. She has like a really good mindset about how she like goes through. But she looked at the boot camp as an education process, and like contacted the banner team, the MiddleGround operations people, wanting to know more training and stuff that she could do to better herself and learn more about the concepts and all of those different things. And when you see somebody like that, it makes up for all the, other people that, that like they're just going through the motions and they're doing it, and then they're never going to do anything else with it. But it's to their peril at the end of the day,
It's extraordinary. I will say, guys, we're out of time, but thank you both very much for taking time out of your days. I know both of you are very busy to be here for episode 5 of Executive Sessions. So on that note, we'll bid you all adieu. This is
Clayton signing off.